Transition. Yep. Here we go.
Ooh, what?
I'll tell you later. It's a secret.
Okay, everybody, we are live.
Are you sure this time?
Maybe.
Well, we're
That's what
we're
happens when John has buttons,
yeah,
right?
it happens
No.
on occasion. We've got Godzilla versus Kong. We're gonna do that. That's what we're gonna do for this entire episode.
what?
But before we get there, we're doing a sound check just
I'll
to make
tell you
sure
later.
everybody's
It's a
good.
secret.
Okay, everybody, we are live. We are good.
Oh,
Are you sure this
okay,
time?
we're good. That's all I care about.
Maybe.
Remember, you can find the actual podcast at thehollywoodoutsider.com or whatever podcast app you use. Just look for The Hollywood Outsider. It's there. New episode every week. This episode's coming out a little earlier, but the movie came out earlier than it was supposed to. The whole thing's a conundrum. I don't know what's going on. It's on TV, but it's also in the theaters. I'm sorry, streaming. I don't know what's going on. But welcome to The Hollywood Outsider, an award-winning weekly entertainment podcast. On this episode, we finally have a blockbuster movie to discuss. Ancient enemies together again to have a straight-up wrestling match on land and sea. The only cage match we needed to see this year, and the movie that might have just saved movie theaters. So strap into your heaves and get ready to talk about Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah.
Time to save Mothra. That joke's getting old, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, my name's Aaron Peterson. I'll be your host. Joining me today are my fellow host, John Davenport.
Hey, just in case anyone was wondering, I'm Team Godzilla.
Man to sink.
Hello, hello. Just so everybody's wondering, I am Team Godzilla, not by choice, but by marriage.
Does it? I don't know if that. God, it's like part of suffrage. What are we talking?
Yeah.
The whole movie, I was like, oh, Kong. And then I was like, don't say this out loud.
Well, I am Team Kong because he won. I already saw the movie, so I know who won. So there you go. But did he? Did he really? Or did Godzilla? I mean, I feel like they both got kind of their own little victories here. Would you agree?
It was more Kong's movie, but yeah, they both got their victories out of this.
Godzilla beat more ass, though.
That's true.
Godzilla's got the advantage. I mean, as soon as his halitosis starts firing up, boosh. Apparently, you could drill straight into hollow earth with that the whole time. Who needs a tunnel that's been expertly designed when you got Godzilla pissed off?
Well, how do we know it wasn't Godzilla that made those tunnels? Huh?
Yeah,
Ah.
they just asked, hey guy, can you come up to Antarctica for 5? We just need you to whoosh a hole through here.
Right.
I get it. Well, before we get into monkey versus lizard, I do want to ask you guys because, I mean, this
He's
is
not
a
a
huge
monkey.
whatever ape. This blockbuster deal where Netflix is dropping $400 million for 2 Knives Out sequels that will, and the money fluctuates. It's 450, it's 400, whatever it is. It's at least $400 million for 2 Knives Out sequels that will reunite Ryan Johnson and Daniel Craig. That's a lot of money. And I'm just kind of curious if you guys are taken aback by that kind of deal, and is it just desperation from Netflix at this point?
I don't think anyone would actually throw around $4 million or $400 million in desperation. I think they would throw out that kind of money for quality. So, and Netflix has, like anybody else, has had quality go up and down over the years, and it's just going to me, this is just a sign of more good things coming to Netflix.
Yeah, I think it's really just a reflection of how much people loved the first movie and
was
them trying
amazing.
to grab onto it because it did so well and they have so much opportunity to continue with success with Ryan Johnson and Daniel Craig still at the helm of things, the face of it.
I hope he does a different accent for every movie.
That would be great.
That would be really cool.
I hope he does like Australian in the next one. That's what I hope happens. Well, remember, you can always find more information at thehollywoodoutsider.com. Join our Facebook group or on Twitter at @BuyPopcorn. But let's get into Godzilla versus Kong. I feel like I should be beaten against my chest when I do this. Okay, guys.
You might hurt yourself.
I already sting a little bit.
Yeah.
John, first up, because Amanda apparently can't answer this because she's obligated to like kaiju.
Mm-hmm,
You won't shut up about it. You've been more excited about this than I think, I don't know, anything ever. So why do you like giant kaiju movies so much?
Well, I've been thinking about this question a lot because we get the questions up ahead of the show, and I don't really know exactly how to answer it besides going, There's a bit of fantasy that mixed with reality that I enjoy with them. It's kind of like wrestling in the sense of, especially when you have like two big names battling out. It's kind of like wrestling. You know it's fake. You know it's all put on, but you just can't stop watching how awesome it looks the entire time. And
Hmm.
it's the excitement in which you get to live in those moments. So yeah, that's why I like it.
Really, that simple.
Yeah.
But you're more akin to Godzilla. Is it because he's got the the halitosis? He's got the mouth gonorrhea. Is that why you like him so much? Because he got laser breath.
Well, Godzilla was something that was handed to me by my older brother because my older brother is a big fan of Godzilla. He was always a big G fan, and I kind of got my Godzilla fandom from him in that respect. But also, Godzilla is like one of the first evidences of how fun it is to enjoy an anti-hero. He's not necessarily a hero. He's not necessarily a bad guy. He just shows up and he does whatever he has to show up to do whatever he has to do. Sometimes he steps on people. Sometimes he goes after the big monster that's pissing him off. And it's just simple.
Sometimes he senses robotics. Who knew? Who knew that was capable
Yeah.
of Godzilla? Now it's a new thing we know. All right. Well, first, John, why don't you? Amanda, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You said you only like or you're sided because of your affiliation to your husband. Do you like
Yeah,
kaiju movies in general?
no,
or-
no, I
Okay.
don't. No,
Okay.
no, no, no. So that's why I feel like I really want to emphasize I am not somebody who genuinely, in general, gets invested into monster, bad, fight. That's just not anything that I've ever been really interested in. And so I don't really, the battles are cool in movies, but I just don't have a draw in for it. I think I finally became a little bit more interested in Godzilla as a character once I understood a little bit more about what he represents. That started to change things for me when I was like, oh, okay, so he's the representation of what it means when humanity dabbles and does things too much and has too much control and the effect that that can have in
Mhm.
creating a water monster.
A
Otherwise,
water monster.
yeah,
All
otherwise
right.
I don't care about kaiju movies. Like I just don't. But this movie was really good. I really liked it. It had enough story and heart in it for me to get invested and care about the
Easy
characters.
on the story. Easy.
No, I'm saying like the heart in the story because the story
Yeah, I'll
revolves
give you that.
around Kong and this kind of revolves around the little girl too. Like his humanity is really shown. And so then I'm like, okay, I'm obviously invested if I'm crying, so then I cared.
See, I like Rock'em Sock'em Robots, and this is just Rock'em Sock'em Kaiju. It's just monsters kicking another to me, these movies are the equivalent of when I was a little kid and I had action figures and I would just slam them up against each other and see which one would break first. That's the equivalent it is for me. So
See, I never had that.
there you go. I mean, maybe that's what the joy is there for John and I especially. But I just love that aesthetic. I didn't even know they had stories until you just told me. I mean, really, I'm still debating this one had
Usually
one.
they don't,
Yeah.
but
I mean, there's some fun stuff to pick apart in this movie. I could tell you that, like all that radioactive breath flying everywhere. Why is no one having a problem with that? Why aren't their insides liquefied? I don't understand, but they seem perfectly fine. But you just got to let it go. You just got to let it go.
that's a good point. They didn't show a lot of the casualties of these two. You saw the
Well,
infrastructure
they evacuated
destruction.
the city. Didn't you hear that important piece of information from Lance Reddick?
Well, yeah, because the last time they let some superhero or something destroy a city, people were like, "This is stupid because they destroyed the city.
Yeah.
How could you destroy the city and people got hurt? It's a stupid movie."
They did have a totally Batman versus Superman scene. You saw that, right? Where
Yeah,
like going
totally.
back and forth. I'm like, just say Mothra. Just say it. I don't care. Just
Yeah.
say it. All right, we're getting ahead of ourselves. John, why don't you catch us up on where this film starts off with a bit of what happened in the previous 3 films that led to this one?
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do this chronologically for everybody. So,
Oh boy.
in 1973, a bunch of explorers head to a never-before-seen island, and that island is Skull Island. Some of the explorers are there to look for minerals and ore, yet others are there to find evidence of Titans and this whole hollowed Earth idea. They meet a young Titan, because he's only about 100 feet when they meet him in 1973. His name is King Kong. And he seems to be a benevolent protector to the people of that island. And it's interesting and fun that way, I guess. Then we jump forward to 2014. Two Titans are spawned. They break containment, which alerts the whole world to the idea that Titans exist. And they're running around, running amok, and Godzilla shows up. He makes short of them, and then he is the big hero and dives back into the ocean after sleeping it off for a little bit in the middle of San Francisco. Because
we never see that fight, right? Is that the fight we see, or is that Hawaii is the one where we don't see it?
Yeah, we see that one on the TV screen in
Still
Hawaii.
Pissed about that.
Yeah. Then in 2017, a fringe group of radicalized environmentalists, I'm going to say that again, radicalized environmentalists, decide it's a great idea to partner up with a scientist who's created a device that can awaken and kind of sort of control Titans to a degree. And they think, hey, let's do this. Let's wake up the biggest, scariest damn thing we can think of, and that's King Ghidorah, who is also called Monster Zero, who they also hint to being an alien monster, not of this Earth. And Godzilla has to show up, and he takes his lickings every now and again, but ultimately he wins that fight. And then we move on to 3 years later, where it's Kong versus Godzilla. Or Godzilla versus Kong, depends on how you like it.
And the Monster Zero, the head in this movie is saved from one of those three heads from that monster.
Right. It was one of the
Ghidorah.
ones that Godzilla ripped off in one of the first fights.
Right. So, Amanda, take a shot. What's the overall plot of Godzilla versus Kong?
Aside from monsters fight, Godzilla attacks an Apex Cybernetics lab in Florida, which scares humans on Earth. Dr. Lind and Apex work together to find a way into Hollow Earth, led by Kong, featuring Cute Little Kid and Dr. Andrews, to capture the radiation, which could give humans a fighting chance against Godzilla. Of course, no one knows about Mechagodzilla except Godzilla. So chaos ensues, battles begin, and billions of dollars of infrastructure are caught in the middle.
Oh, that reminds me. Thanks for bringing up Mechagodzilla. John, remember many episodes back when you told us about Mechagodzilla was going to be in this movie? Because you hinted at it and you said it's definitely not a spoiler because,
Because there's no way I didn't think there was going to be any way I could be right.
Yeah. Thanks for spoiling that. Because saw that coming a mile away. Thanks
also,
to John
a few episodes ago, that was like a year ago.
Yeah, whatever it was, I'm still mad about it because the whole time I'm like, it's going to be Mechagodzilla. It's going to be, God damn it, it's Mechagodzilla.
So before we get into the next part, I want to ask you guys, in the incredible title sequence, I loved it. I'm not being sarcastic. Were
that was
any
really cool.
of you?
That was very cool. Yeah.
But were any of you wondering what the words were around the names that they were blacking out? It was stripped out.
Oh, no.
Because I took 30 minutes to decipher it for you all.
Oh, did you?
Why?
Because I wanted to know what it said, because it seemed like it was so cool that Wingard put this in here, and it goes so fast that you cannot. I mean, you have to play pause, just so you can capture the right second.
I'm sold. You did the work. Let's hear it. What do you got?
Okay, so the history of Titan words will be explored in a film by Adam Wingard that sheds light on previously hidden truths. Alexander Skarsgård needs to prove existence to Hollow Earth to salvage his tarnished reputation. The inclusion of Millie Bobby Brown will aid greatly in the quest. Rebecca Hall has done extensive research that is indispensable to the mission. Untold secrets will be exposed by Brian Tyree Henry and fellow truth seekers. Shunagori, the connections between Hollow Earth and monster sightings has long been established. List explorers have attempted to prove the connection, Isa Gonzalez, and many have perished. And I'm leaving the names in there just so you know how it was listed. Julian Dennison, Hollow Earth has been rumored since earliest historical record. There are shadowy figures, Lance Reddick, who invisibly navigate these liminal realms. Working in concert with Kyle Chandler, they hope to bring the monsters into the light.
Huh.
There are many factors, including advancements in technology in Damian Bashir. Citing works of ancient alien theorists, Hakim K. Kazim has worked in conjunction with Kaylee Hoddle to establish a controversial narrative. Commonly held beliefs are subject to doubts casting by Sarah Haley Finn CSA, which undermine progress. Working from skeletal remains, costume designer and fully fleshes out renderings of monsters' appearance. Visual effects supervisor John DJ Desjardins and creates simulacra of titans based on existing evidence. If I'm saying these things wrong, I'm sorry.
I promise you, you're not saying them right.
Thank you. And Atomic Blast is a visual effects producer, the likes of which Tamara Watts Kent had never seen. The explosive energy demolished structures with sound design, and radiation reached as far as Eric Adal and the lone fishing boat of Ethan van der Rin. The monsters' sounds are compared to music by Tom Holkenborg, which I think is kind of funny. The record of monster clashes is edited by Josh Schaefer, Ace, to reflect ongoing battles. The military has increased spending to support production designers Owen Patterson, Thomas S. Hammock as they gear up for intensified battles with monsters. The most dramatic battles were captured by director of photography Ben Saracen, ASC BSC. The most compelling footage was suppressed. Increased activity necessitates rebuilding. Executive producers Jay Ashenfelter and his cohort Herbert W. Gaines do the work. Executive producers Dan Lin and his ally Roy Lee control information that makes it to the public. Kong's powers fascinates and intrigues executive producers Yoshimitsu Bano and Kenji Okahiro, so they study his anatomy. In data produced by Thomas Tull, studied by John Joshny, Brian Rogers is able to track Kong's progress. Reports of monster rampages produced by Mary Parent, PGA, are expurgated by Alex Garcia, PGA, with Eric McLeod to allay public fears. The ability to track monsters is based on the character Godzilla, leaving a wake of destruction across properties owned and created by Toho Corporation Limited. Evidence is plentiful, but a cover story by authorities seeks to protect Terry Rossio and Michael Dougherty and implicate underground groups and Zach Shields in the recent increase in Titan activity. Reality is stranger than anything in a screenplay by a raving lunatic and makes Eric Pearson and Max Borenstein seem credible by comparison. Directed by Adam Wingard to cease investigations.
Dear God, what started as a really clever in-joke went way too long.
It was very long.
Yeah, both you and them. I don't But that's interesting. At least, I mean, it all has more to it. I kind of wasn't even looking at it. I just assumed, I'm like, oh, that's some cool stuff I don't need to know. I was looking more at the newspaper headlines and things like that. In
the prior Godzilla footage and Kong footage and all that, which was cool. Right. But I was like, I feel like I felt like there was some sort of a hint in there. So I wanted to investigate and do all of the work. Which
internet sleuths, I like it. Well, I'm glad you did, because I wouldn't. So let's take on the story. We're going to go through the characters, starting with the humans, the smartest of all of them. Nah, that's a joke. All right, we're going to start with, I believe it's pronounced Chia or Chi. I don't want to get that wrong, but Kaylee Hoddle is the deaf girl that can communicate with Kong. This is probably my favorite of the human aspect. It's probably my favorite easily of the story elements here, because I just thought she was, yes, adorable, but also I thought she had real depth and heart to her.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more about that. She was pretty incredible, and every time she was on the screen and interacting with Kong, I just loved every minute of that, because it's just like, as far as, you know, big little girl, big scary monster loves her. Like, that's just such a great dynamic to play with, and they do it so well with this.
Yeah, she was easily my favorite part of the human story, or any story that I needed, and without her character, there would not be as much sympathy for Kong as we had. And it really drove the feelings for people who were undecided, I would say, between which character they're going to root for. It really drove them towards Kong and made Godzilla seem to be the bad guy, because Kong just wants to be home. He just wants to protect this little girl. He's just E.T. Yes. And he's learned how to do sign language because he realizes that she's deaf and she can hear his heartbeat. And everything was just so emotional, and it elevated the intensity when Godzilla would attack Kong.
Yeah, and she was the only one that survived from the natives, the way that they explained it. But she was just absolutely adorable and fantastic actress. I hope she has a long and storied career in Hollywood. And I also want to know, nobody noticed this when she's teaching the giant ape sign language? Like, nobody, there's no camera. I mean, there's basically an entire dome around this place. You would think there's some cameras hanging around. Nobody captured this. I'm like, hey, what's she doing? He seems to be responding. Did he say home? That's odd.
I was
Nothing.
more concerned, like, nobody is worried about this tiny little girl running out to, like, play with the giant ape that could, I mean, literally, the tip of his fingernail is bigger than her entire body.
Yeah, hit the
So,
the child parental laws there in Skull Island are very thin,
Well,
very
she's not,
thin.
she's not actually anyone's kid anymore.
That's true.
She's just bait at this point.
That's never stopped
Oh.
us from assigning them to a parent.
that's true.
Yeah, sad but true, sad but true. But she was the best element, and I did love that we were able to communicate. And I do want to ask about the humanized Kong, but I'll wait until we get to Kong because we're gonna go by character. So, anything else on her?
No, she was
Okay.
great.
Alexander Skarsgård, Rebecca Halls, Nathan Lind, and Eileen Andrews. Eileen's been keeping Kong at an off-site facility. It's Skull Island, but it's just basically with a dome over it. Never noticed the sign language thing we just talked about. Nathan lost a brother or something, searching for Hollow Earth. Why did they need to Kong to get there? That's one element of the story I don't get. What did you think of these two particular characters and their journeys? I guess is it a journey? I don't know. They went to Hollow Earth. This whole Hollow Earth plot was a big issue.
I didn't think it was as much of an issue for me as it seems like it was for you, just because I only
just-
need to buy into it a little bit.
True.
Because the whole movie, anytime you have like a kaiju wars movie, it's gonna be ridiculous, and they're gonna have to take some extensions to be able to make sense of some of this stuff and to try to advance things forward. So I get they wanted to get to Hollow Earth and there was a purpose behind it. I don't know why they couldn't have just tried to find an easier route than just have him guide us. I think they thought it would just be easy to go through there, but weren't really thinking about the potential for Godzilla to find them on the way. I don't, especially when you're going through the water to move him.
Why didn't they take helicopters to begin with if they're worried about the water?
Well-
Apparently his presence in the water he can sense that. Godzilla has a crazy ability to sense things.
It's like Dolphin on steroids.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like he's in the water. He's a couple continents away, and he's like, "Wait, what's that? That smells like my ancient rival. What? What is he doing in the water right now?"
But I think the helicopters wouldn't have been able to sustain that long of a trip
Right.
because this Skull Island, if I'm not mistaken, based on what I saw in the title sequences, is over by Hawaii, and they needed to really get them pretty far to get them to the destination. So
Yeah,
I don't
going to
think that it
Antarctica.
would have held that far. But at the same time, I also learned that the helicopters that they use with like the two little spindly things on the top, I
They're
don't know
called
what the words are.
ospreys.
Yes, those things are notorious for crashing. And so it seems a little crazy that they would all just unite and get something to the destination without dying. So that's.
Well, I mean, it worked, right? It did.
it did.
work.
It worked for me. I didn't care. I was fine.
Yeah. You know, Alexander Skarsgård's character, I like what they did. They didn't make him seem like he was a badass. They didn't make him seem like he was very cool or knew what he was doing. He was a coward and a nerd, and
That was a great. I did like the coward and the callback to coward. I thought that was
Yeah.
great.
that was pretty great. And Rebecca Hall, she was just, and it's not that she was not enjoyable to watch on screen. It's just that she was just completely overshadowed by giant monsters, and you kind of forget that she's there sometimes. But her relationship with Chia or Chai or whatever you say, like that relationship was actually very sweet to see whenever she's interacting with her. I love those moments too. It's kind of like not as sweet and cool as when she is interacting with King Kong, but there's like a love there, and you can actually feel that love between the two of them, and I like that.
Yeah, they very
Go
yeah.
ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just they very much feel like mother and daughter without being mother and daughter. Like you can tell it's a very parental love, and she looks to her as a parental figure.
Yeah, my problems with some of these story elements, like I don't know why we had to talk about Nathan's brother dying through the trying to get the hollowed earth. That doesn't make any sense, other than to give you the idea that it's hard to get there. And then as far as Kong going there or not, it just seems like they may have poorly identified the reason Kong was there was to take him to this certain like power thing or radiation thing that is the big power plant that they're looking for to power things, I guess. I don't know. But
the energy source to power Mecha Godzilla. Yeah, the thing you ruined for me. I paid very close attention to that. Yeah.
It seemed like the only reason why Kong needed to be there. Otherwise, they would have been searching everywhere for this power source. But this whole idea that Kong has a rivalry with Godzilla kind of led them to that throne room.
Which is very, I really like that aspect. I think that's cool. Ancient rivals and whatnot. Don't worry, it's muscle memory from just being an ape. What? I don't know if that's a thing, but maybe it is. Maybe in science there's some I mean, there's genetic disposition, of course, in people for that to a certain extent. I don't know about locations. Usually it's personality traits, but you know what? They're very instinctive, and maybe that works. It's one of those things where like we might be picking the plot. I didn't care. Like I never care about the plots in these movies. I am not one of those critics that just picks the plot. I just think it's funny, some of it. And the brother aspect, they had to show that because they had to demonstrate that it's very dangerous to go in there without the proper equipment, so that you could explain why they have these new jazzy neon Tron mobiles or whatever the hell these things are. I think they're the carriers from V, right? Like, isn't that what it looked like to you? Just
they
flashier lights.
Yeah, they could look like the carriers from V, only with 4 turbines on them, as opposed to just like it flies for no good reason.
Exactly, and you had to have them down there with Kong because they have to mention important information like that axe is recharging right now. You know, that's something we needed to know, that the axe is on a recharge, and they.
Well, and I think the only way you could get this all to work is with Apex.
Yeah, and wireless recharging. I think that's an important story element that people aren't talking about. It's very important.
You realize what the axe is, right?
I think it's a big metal thing that goes in people's legs, or Godzilla's leg.
No.
Okay, what is it?
The axe is actually it's actually one of the plates off of another creature like Godzilla that had died there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
It's one of those plates. That's why when he placed the axe into that groove that's in the giant Godzilla skeleton, and it ended up charging up from that moment. So what they're saying in that moment is that the power source was essentially the skeletal remains of a different creature like Godzilla.
That once united, powered up.
Right.
And pissed Godzilla off, and he's like, I'm going to open up a hole so it's a lot easier for you guys to get in and out of here from now on.
Yeah.
Good call. I like it. All right. Now we go to the probably most needless additions to the plot. Like, I don't even know why we needed them there other than to show some things. But Millie Bobby Brown, Gillian Dennison, and Brian Tyree Henry as Madison Russell. Her dad, Kyle Chandler, also returned for 3 minutes. You heard his name in Amanda's monologue. Josh Valentine, conspiracy podcast host Bernie Hayes. That's who they play. And I want to point out just one thing. Okay, Bernie Hayes, he's a source of humor, so there's definitely some of that. So I learned that lesson from that other superhero team up. It gets into like every secure area, every single one. Just he's undercover. I get it. But this is a guy that scares me in 3 seconds from knowing. I'm like, I would not let him into any secure area, but he's just like all over the place. But what'd you think about the humans here? Like, these are the other characters we're following as the heroes, so to speak. And Millie Bobby Brown was in King of Monsters, and I get why she's back to a degree. I just don't know if their story was great.
Was it a great story? No. Was it needed? Not really. But it did. I mean, it connected. I was more surprised that Millie Bobby Brown had more to do than her dad, like more screen time than her dad, who is a more pivotal character to all of this.
But we didn't need him. I mean,
We
I get
didn't need
what
either
you're
of
saying,
them.
but
We don't need either of them. I'm just saying between the two, it would make more sense to have his character have more screen time because he's actually a part of that. She's just like a little conspiracy kid who's like, yeah, let's just go stalk this podcast host and make him do our deeds.
let's go
I
hunt
was
him
just
down
like,
because we know he drinks bleach or uses bleach all the time. So
showers
we
with
know.
bleach.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
So
Because
that's how we find him. Brilliant.
yeah, it's just it's next level. Now, I will say that they had some, I mean, they fit the story in here. They made it work. But I think also at the same time, if you took them out, probably would have been just as fine.
Well, the only thing is the people saved Hong Kong, technically. Because, of
Yeah.
course, we've got two of the biggest titans in the world, and they're going against, a human-made robot. And, of course, we got to have people come in and spill some, what was it,
Alcohol.
booze to give the advantage back to Kong. And that's, honestly, all these things that I'm kind of nitpicking, but I'm not really nitpicking because I don't really care. That one I care about because that one irritated me. I'm like, no, I want them to win and win fair. I don't want this where people got to come in and thank God the people were there. No, the people suck. The people are the reason these two are battling it out and destroying tons of infrastructure. So that's the only part that really annoyed me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that being very annoying. It would have been so much more interesting to see the two, both Kong and Godzilla, actually do a team up fight where the two of them, one's holding one arm and one's doing this, one that, and the other. And
They tag each other in and out.
they tag each other in, and they're constantly like just keeping this thing on its toes because obviously it's stronger than Godzilla and it's stronger than Kong, but it can't be stronger than both of them. That would have been a whole lot more interesting of an ending to see them just actually work together, and then that moment at the end where they kind of stop and, hey, I'll follow you on Snapchat. Yeah, bro, I'm out. That whole moment would have been a lot cooler. But yeah, I agree about these three characters. Well, actually, I liked Bernie. Bernie makes
I liked
sense.
I liked all three of them. I wasn't.
Yeah. He was enjoyable because he was funny. Bitch, what?
Yeah.
Like he was needed.
Bernie, like you guys talk about how it was like he's one of these people that you wouldn't let into high secure areas, but to me, he is that guy who can get himself everywhere he wants to go on accident. And we all know this.
Just because he's funny, I get it.
Yeah, like
I don't. I can be funny at times. I don't think I've ever gotten in a secure facility. I think I'd be in jail.
Look, I can't tell you this, but I know somebody who's like this, who accidentally gets themselves in places that they don't belong. And it happens
I think I know
a lot.
this person too.
Now I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
I know a guy that does that too, but not quite to secure level at government infrastructure buildings.
Oh yeah,
but he's already there because he's still an engineer.
I know he's an engineer.
He's already there.
And he's still a smart guy, and he has a place in this organization. They never think twice about him because he's a little weird and quirky and whatever.
Yeah.
However, I feel like they know of this podcast and his voice isn't masked at all. So how do they not recognize like, oh, that's that guy in engineering who told me not to eat apples because of the GMOs?
Yeah, I mean at one point I thought the same thing, Amanda. I'm like, wouldn't somebody be like, you sound just like Bernie? That's weird, right? And then he just starts going, no, I don't know what you're talking about. I just don't. Nope, not me.
Yeah, like this company Apex wouldn't have a team of lawyers paying attention to this podcast at all. That's I get that. That's a bit of a stretch to get past, but the rest.
Well, hang on. As podcast hosts, I am appreciative that they finally made a podcast host save the world, essentially, because his bourbon or whatever is what really took the advantage. So there's a plus there for us.
Like, and you have bourbon all the time, so
Right now. What do you think has been in this red solo
So you're
cup?
basically a superhero now.
yeah,
It's about
that's it.
time. If only I could bang on my chest without getting hurt. Not being injured. I do want to point. I love the Tron Express train to Hong Kong where they just pop in. I'm like,
That
who
is
built this?
so Godzilla. Like, that's like such a Godzilla thing. A lot of this is actually old school Godzilla throwbacks.
It is. Yeah, it is.
That we're seeing here. Like the needless use of a van that has antennas all over it. Why? Why is it there?
Good question.
But hey, it's like, and where do people always find these vans? Where does this kid have this van and that has antennas and
He
radios
stole it from
and
his brother.
satellites
yeah,
on
he
it?
stole it from his brother. It was
Yeah,
clearly
why?
explained.
And then he drives around playing the Breaking the Law song.
Yeah.
Like, how ironic. That reminds me. This soundtrack for this movie was awesome.
Yeah, it was a great soundtrack.
loved
Oh, God,
it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
loved it. The moments were perfect to use the right songs. It really took it to the next level.
I'm glad you brought that up because too often in blockbuster fare, I feel like whenever you get songs that are incorporated, it always concerns me because not because of the movie at the time, but 10 years from now when I watch it can be a distraction. You know, it's like, oh, that's so 90s or that's so 2000s, you know. I feel like this one will play. This one will play. And I always keep that in mind when I'm hearing them. I'm like, is this going to play in 10 years? And yeah, I think this one will play.
Yeah, that's a trait that we have to thank James Gunn and Edgar Wright for, because both of them
Tarantino
and Tarantino. Yeah,
Okay.
That's a whole like those three directors are very good at choosing music for their movies.
All right. Well, we got Demian Bashir and Isa Gonzalez as Walter and Maya Simmons. They've got heaves. They explain special gravitational operational capabilities. I do kind of want to get like, how did Apex and Lind discover Hollow Earth from up top? I know that they talked about using their new satellite that shows the Hollow Earth inside of Earth. But how did they come up with it? Because they were already digging to it.
Lind knows about it because he was part of Monarch, and Monarch has been testing that whole Hollow Earth theory since the first movie, or since Kong Island.
Okay, that explains it. That's the one thing where I was like, it didn't bother me. I was just kind of curious. I do want to say Demian Bashir as Walter Simmons. I don't think Isa really got much time here.
She was annoying when she did get time.
She was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I wanted her to die. And she kept calling it a monkey. And until I was like, okay, maybe he is a monkey. Then I realized and found out, no, Kong is not a monkey.
This really bothers you, being labeled a monkey.
Well, they used it so much. I'm like, first of all, it's the cliche, obnoxious, annoying woman who's kind of stupid. But at the same time, I did want her to get smacked around by Kong.
Is this a woke thing? Am I going to get canceled because I said monkey like 3 times?
I don't think it's anything where it's like an obnoxious woman kind of thing. It's just supposed to measure her level of caring about Kong and
arrogance.
So yeah, her arrogance. So her it really emphasizes those things the most versus making her this obnoxious woman. It's just more about she just doesn't care and thinks she's queen shit. So she's just going to call it whatever she feels like calling it.
We can all agree it was great when he squished her, though, right?
Yeah, that was pretty great.
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah.
He just looks, and the thing I loved about that, this was a fun touch, and it's probably Adam Wingard because he's great with little stuff like this. But the touch was Kong pulls the heave up to his face, looks in the window, makes sure he knows who's in there, and says, "No." But Demian Bashir, I thought, like, he's an actor I really love. I really love his work. He's been in a lot of things. But I don't think I've ever seen him this animated and just chewing scenery. And I really, really dug it. I really want him to be more of these kinds of characters. He just seemed fun, you know?
Yeah, he definitely did. He seemed like he was just eating the scenery left and right, and he was completely thrown into this role. That just like... He disappears in it, and you can't measure any of his other roles to it. And he's just that perfect, I'm a megalomaniac billionaire who's going to take over the world. That's great.
Save the world. Now take it over. Save the world.
I mean, you say tomato, I say tomato. Some guy has a 400-foot tall robot Godzilla. They're not there to save anything. They're there to be like, hey, guess who's boss now?
I mean, you have a case. You have a case, counselor.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought he was fantastic. I did not expect him to have as much range in his acting just based on things I've seen him before in terms of playing a completely opposite character. Like, I just didn't expect it. So that was nice to see him do, and I hope we get to see a little bit more of him because that's twice this year we've seen him. So that's nice.
Yeah, he's a great actor. That kind of segues into Apex's creation of Mechagodzilla and how Walter has his right-hand man piloting the poor thing when it gets short-circuited. It's very sad. But what happens is they get the energy, and apparently they just replicate it. John, please explain.
Yeah, they take the sample down in the hollowed earth, and they send the chemical makeup, I guess, to Apex, and that's how they synthesize this fuel for Mechagodzilla.
In minutes.
Yeah.
Minutes, maybe seconds.
Because they were ready.
Well, they've created an entire
so ready.
express train to Hong Kong. I think they can manage to do this within minutes.
I still want to know who built that tunnel. Who built that? Because
never mind
underwater?
Just the tunnel, but they're in Florida. They're in Pensacola, Florida, and they built an underground facility.
Yeah, they did. They sure
Do you know
did.
what happens when you dig too deep in Florida?
I don't live in Florida.
You hit water.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was underwater. I literally just did that. It's an underwater tunnel that goes all the way to Hong Kong. Who built that? Who built it?
Godzilla.
No. Well, he could have, I guess. They just, hey, can you bring your
No.
fire over here? Thanks, bud.
Thanks. Yeah. Your check's in the mail, pal.
Oh, look, it's flooded again.
Just
'cause
put
it's always
Kong
wet.
on the other end, and he'll just go with his mouth,
Right.
and there you go.
Aw, the teamwork. All right, so what did you think about Apex's creation of Mechagodzilla? It uses the energy source, and once it has that, apparently that also infuses it with the recklessness, the desire to break free, the desire to rampage, whatever. It makes it its own little titan, and definitely takes out the creator first off. What did you think of Mechagodzilla that John ruined for me?
Well, seeing as I ruined it, I'm going to go ahead and just step in here. First of all, my ruining it was nothing more than like I saw elements from the old Godzilla movies in that first trailer, and all the elements reminded me of Mechagodzilla. That's why I said there's no way Mechagodzilla's not in this movie. And I expected to be wrong because I'm wrong so often. But
I love that you admit that so casually. Like, yeah, I'm wrong all the time. It's fine. I've accepted it.
It's
very
fine.
frequently, I am incorrect.
Yeah. I'm rarely ever right. It's okay. I live with it. I sit in it. I wear my dunce cap very happily. It's just a great place to be, and I don't care. The creature of Mechagodzilla I thought was awesome. I like the idea of how they explained it kind of getting its own consciousness from from kind of like the leftover remains of Ghidorah, which
Yeah.
and as well as what was inputted by this human being who had his brain plugged into the whole thing, because who sacrifices their brain like this? I don't know, but this guy did. He didn't realize that's what he was doing, but that's what he did. So yeah, and as far as the fight goes with Mechagodzilla, and it's actually so much cooler than any Mechagodzilla fight I've ever seen, because he is, he's more dynamic in his motion. He's not very robotic. He's very alive, and it's just brutal what he does.
Oh, and the minute when the camera goes up, the scales or whatever, and they start popping into place. Oh, that was a great moment.
That was a very cool moment.
I liked how big and like everything that Godzilla is, he was, and then some. Like I anticipated, because again, John anticipated it to be, and the internet, to be fair, to not rag on John too much. The internet did totally ruin this for us.
True.
But
No, John ruined it for me. I didn't see it anywhere else. Nowhere else did I see it.
I fully expected it to just basically be Godzilla but robot, but it was Godzilla and then some as a robot. And the way that he was conceived was the same, I feel like was similar to the way Godzilla was actually created. It's still that analogy or metaphor for people messing with things that they shouldn't and bad things come of it. Like if we hadn't had the atomic bomb that created the radiation or radioactive whatever in Godzilla, he wouldn't have the powers that he does. And this Mecha Godzilla wouldn't be as crazy and big and, consciously thinking on his own independently and having his own autonomy if they weren't trying to control it. And it's humans trying to interfere with things that they really shouldn't. And it always goes wrong. We know it goes wrong.
We never
and yet,
listen.
yeah, never listen. And so, as much as that is a typical cliche, it still worked for me because I feel like these other two monsters, they're ruled by more than just fight. They're ruled by more, at least that's what I took away from this movie. They're ruled by more than just their historical plight that they have between these two big rivals. Like they managed to work together because they're like, shit, no, bad. Like stop doing this. And
Well,
I appreciate
Godzilla's ruled
that.
by no, you don't make two of me. All right.
Yeah.
There's
I'm the
me.
king, baby.
I will burn this house down
Yeah.
if you think you're gonna make
Literally.
a replacement for me.
My
Literally.
first name is God, right?
You
First
guys
name
picked
God.
it. You should know. I'm just saying. That's crazy. Oh, I can't believe I didn't mention this. One thing I couldn't stop thinking throughout the entire movie. All right, this is gonna sound weird, but you know how they're in Hollow Earth, both in the middle and at the end of the movie because of Apex and whatnot.
Mhm.
The absolute missed opportunity of not sending Millie Bobby Brown to the Upside Down, basically, is just a waste of celluloid.
Yeah, I'm not there with you.
I think.
Yeah, I don't care. Mm-mm.
I thought it would have been fantastic. You guys don't understand how fun is. All right, well, Kong loses round one.
Speaking of Kong, before we actually talk about the fights, because I know you're going to talk about the fights, right?
I'm just going to talk about Kong.
Oh, okay.
I was going to talk about the character of Kong, but is there more?
Well, I was going to talk about something related to the movie, not necessarily the character.
Well, you're
right,
already
go
you're
ahead.
already in it, Amanda. Let's go.
Okay, I'm here. My favorite.
Only
thing
Amanda would
that
have a 5-minute conversation about something she's going to have a conversation about.
My favorite thing that I think has, in my perspective, has not been done this well, at least in any other movie that I can recall. The way that they made these characters through the special effects made them look so, the ratio of how large and real and the impact that they had.
The scale.
It felt so authentic and it created a level of terror in me. And I'm like, shoo, wow, they are really big. Like, I guess I never thought about how big a giant ape would be or how big this Godzilla and the water creature would be, because when I see them, they're typically like scaled down a little bit more, still big, but not as, it just wasn't emphasized as much in previous movies that I've seen. And so here I'm like, wow, these are really, really massive creatures. And in more than just, are they as tall as a building or taller than a building? It was, what is the impact of them falling down or swinging their arm the wrong way or splashing in water? And I thought it was
take out
so
a condominium.
perfect.
That's what it is. Boosh,
Yeah, at
gone.
least 12 of them. Like, it was the best part of it for me because and especially seeing it in a theater with a massive screen and Dolby surround sound, I was completely there. I felt like, okay, this monster is going to eat my face soon if I don't move out of the way, because they felt so big and real.
That's one thing that these movies in general have been really good at is setting up the size of these movies. I still remember in the first movie, the halo drop scene, in which they use that in the trailer. You see him kind of freaking out, as well, not freaking out, but he's breathing in the air as he's dropping down into the clouds.
Mhm.
And then you realize that he's going through the clouds, and he's still in the clouds, and then he's like falling past Godzilla's hand, and just how small he is in comparison to the size of Godzilla's hand is such an awesome scene. And I loved how they played with that size aspect of him. And again, as far as the physical impact of a creature like Godzilla coming out of the ocean in Hawaii, where it actually creates a tidal wave to some degree,
Yeah.
is awesome.
The only thing that I would say in terms of the design between the monsters is it was really unfair because Kong, you look at his face and he's like adorable and he's got like
He was
puppy dog
so
eyes and
cute.
this
Oh, yeah.
little monkey, ape, whatever. You look so cute. And then you look at Godzilla and he's angry and ugly and scornful. I mean, he just looks like the ex you've been trying to get rid of for years. It's just like,
Yeah,
poor guy. No wonder he's got that bad breath.
that's
His
true.
angry breath.
That's one of the reasons why I think like this was King Kong's movie more than it was Godzilla, because Godzilla wasn't in it nearly as much as Kong was.
Well, he destroyed everything. God, he fell. At one point, he stumbled and fell down, and he knocked out, I think, 3 skyscrapers. That's a big
But
dude.
Yeah.
to be fair, Godzilla, the moments he did have were huge. Like Kong had all
Yeah,
of
they
the
were.
Kong had all of the humanity and the sweetness, that he had that compassion that we got for him. But Godzilla had the ass beating. Like he really just, and I did not expect it to, like we all had this conversation in our last episode about who's going to win the fight essentially.
Mhm.
And we kind of, for the most part, there was an agreement, a consensus that Godzilla is a big bad monster that could do damage to Kong. And I just didn't expect how much damage he could do to Kong, especially in this movie where I see how big and strong he is, and I'm given that. And then as I have compassion for him, then he comes against Godzilla, which just demolishes him. Like he had to be saved multiple times against Godzilla, or else he wouldn't have survived.
Yeah, he's huge. He's monstrous, and he's also got little hands. So I don't really know how do they build all this stuff in Hollow Earth? You know, back in the day, because I mean, like it would have taken forever, those little hands.
They just use their breath and they're like, carve that out.
Well, let's
Carve
go
that.
Kong. This is a question I really want to like ask the kaiju lover, right? And that's you, Johnny. You've loved these since you were a kid. You love these. I mean, I like them for the Pound Town. Well, that's wrong. That's wrong.
That is not what is happening
Not
here.
You're
the
watching
correct-
a different kaiju movie.
Yeah, I don't know where you found this copy, but it's definitely covered by curtains in a movie store.
Right.
Yeah. In terms of Kong, do you think they humanized him too much?
No, I don't think they did at all, because there's supposed to be a level of magic when it comes to these creatures, and giving them the ability of bonding with humans is something that I think is a good element, and it's actually a strong element in the Toho movies for Godzilla also. It's just something that is a great way to help connect to that. Connect to that kaiju for sure.
So do you think they did not humanize Godzilla enough then, in that respect?
It would have been so much better. Maybe if they. Well, no, actually, in that respect, they can only do one or the other. They couldn't do both. And I understand why they chose Kong, because Godzilla already got his big moment. So now it's time for Kong to get his big moment. And maybe in the next movie, we'll see some humanizing of Godzilla.
Okay. Now let's talk about the fights. I mean, you brought up the fights. So round 1, Kong loses. But what'd you think about the ping ponging off of ships? By the way, I love that he's using them as stepping rocks, essentially, as he's jumping toward Godzilla. What'd you think of that fight? I thought that was a fantastic fight, monster fight at sea.
It was fun. That is what the only word that comes to mind is just how fun this movie was for these monsters to fight. And again, I'm not somebody who's normally invested or cares about these big fights. I don't even care about people fighting. So me investing in fake monsters fighting is usually a little bit further out there, and I get that's not the norm, but It takes more. But these were so good. They emphasized how big and bad they were. And the moment when Godzilla drags him under the water,
Oh, that was hard
and you could see him start to
to drown.
suffocate and drown. Yeah. I was like, wow, that's really shows the power of Godzilla, because we've seen the power of Godzilla in different ways, but I don't think we've really fully understand, or at least for me, I'll speak for myself, I haven't really fully grasped how impactful him being able to go land and water is for him, and how big and bad he is. And I was like, man, he's really gonna he could destroy everything. Like, he's just a big bad monster.
That's what I've been saying.
Yeah.
But I
he-
felt
he
it,
has been
John.
saying
I
it.
felt it.
I really dug it, but unfortunately, I don't think there was any chance Kong could have won that battle because it's in the water. I mean, and he can't swim really. So what's he gonna do? He's just gonna he's gonna drown.
He literally had to be saved.
Yeah, he did have to be saved. Thankfully,
Yeah.
the humans were there again.
Yeah, this is one of those things where poor Kong gets hamstrung by the fact that he has no firm ground to stand on. So yeah, it's there's no way he could have won that fight. But I love that fight so much. Kong sitting there looking at all the boats, going, okay, I can jump on this one and then make it over to this big one, and then we can fight on that big one. That was awesome when you kind of see him do that whole thing, and then the diehard jump off the carrier.
I loved
I love
that
that.
moment where he's like, I'm out of here. That was so great. It was so
Yeah.
fun.
The great part about that was him. You know, he's Kong, and yeah, he's just sometimes a big dumb ape. Sometimes you think, but he looks down and he sees that light illuminating, and he's like, this is
Nope.
bad, right? This is bad. And he just has that moment of awareness where he's, I think I'm out. I think I'm out. Bye, guys.
And they made Godzilla kind of, they used a little bit of Jaws, I felt like, because the way that
They
they had
did.
him swiveling in the water, and
That
you
was
see
100% an homage to Jaws.
so
Yeah.
awesome. And I was like, oh man, could you imagine being the like thinking about the humans in this experience? Could you imagine them being like, oh my god, it's not a shark, it's a giant Godzilla here to fight our giant ape? Like,
No, I can't
it's
imagine
terrifying.
and I really can't imagine why you would lock yourself into a tiny room when you know there's a good chance the ship is going to sink. That
Yeah.
just felt like a bad call. But I
Well,
did
the little
like
girl dragged her in there, so
you can say no. It's an important thing to be a parent, to say no. I don't want to do dumb things. Stay here,
I
child.
don't want to do dumb things.
I did like how Lynn used that moment to unlock Kong and realize, I think I need him. We really, really need him to
Yeah.
Yeah.
win this, to even have a chance at this. All right, the second battle is in Hong Kong. Though I mean, they say it's a second. Like round 2 goes to Kong, and I'm like, well, that was pretty short because that round wasn't over. But I guess they went back to their corners for a little bit, so they could have a clear winner. So what do you think of round 2, where Kong gets the advantage? He's got the magic axe. It's all powered up by Godzilla and whatnot. And he does get some good licks and knocks Godzilla on his ass. Now, John, as a Godzilla fan, were you a little worried there? Were you a little like, no, this couldn't happen. That's my big lizard.
No, I would never take one of those things and be like, that would never happen, because giant monsters fighting. If I start laying down rules as to what would or wouldn't happen, then I would actually start with giant monsters don't exist. So there are no rules, and
Okay,
it's okay.
fair enough.
So
Fair.
that being said, it's a trait in every single Godzilla movie. This is the same. It's the same thing in wrestling too. You know, Hulk Hogan gets smashed and he's down on his knees, and then someone's got him arm lock, and all of a sudden the crowd starts chanting for Hulk Hogan. It's like Hulk, and he starts feeling the power, and he gets back up, and then he starts whooping ass again. It's the exact same thing here. I don't really count it as what as Kong won round 2 or not. I just think that he was able to get a couple of great licks in, and then Godzilla really put a hurting on him, which is obvious because the humans had to come in again and hit him with a defibrillator they made out of a spaceship.
Yeah, it was. I thought that was pretty actually funny that you bring up wrestling, because when he jumps up and he's got the axe, and it's the moments in every trailer and everything, and he's coming at him that way. I'm like, that's totally like from the top of the ring
Yep.
jumping down. once again to Pound Town, and just taking that lizard out.
Monkey.
And I loved it. I loved it. I loved it.
Oh god, that axe scene was awesome. So again, I figured out halfway through the movie when they showed when I was looking at the axe finally in the movie, I go, that's a freaking dorsal blade off of a Godzilla creature, and then they show that it's actually what it is, and I thought that was very cool, and how they were able to use it as a way to fight, to give himself an advantage, or at least combat the advantage that Godzilla has with the radioactive breath. Was kind of a smart way to even the playing field, because in the original Kong versus Godzilla, they gave Kong the ability of absorbing electricity and then being able to.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was weird.
It's a weird thing to give a monkey, and it's a weird thing in general to have. There's no explanation to it, so they give him the ability of, and we know that monkeys or apes can create tools, so to give him the ability of creating a tool like this, or his people the ability of creating a tool like this to fight other people, makes sense to me.
Amanda, you're a big Kong fan. Did you love the fight when you thought maybe he was going to win this one, and then you realized a few seconds later he's not?
I was excited for him, but I never felt like he won. Like, there was no moment where I was ever like, yeah, Kong won this.
Yeah,
it was just Kong got a few seconds of beatdown on Godzilla, and then Godzilla came back and was like, all right, homie, now you're ready to really play. Let's do this. And, smacked him around a bunch, killed him. So it never felt like Kong actually won. But I think that's kind of what they wanted to do. They wanted you to, and that's why they built the sympathy. Yeah. They wanted you to sympathize with him and connect with him, so that way your heart is kind of like, no. Like, I cried a bunch of times with Kong in here, and I was mad at Godzilla because he wouldn't stop and let up. But again, that's kind of the point. The point is to show who's the stronger monster here. And even though Kong got some really, really good hits in, I think we know who is the stronger monster here, the stronger kaiju.
Yeah, and speaking of who the strongest one is, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/The Hollywood Outsider. That's called an awkward plug. You're welcome. I want to mention the third fight. I mean, I don't really think it's a third fight. I know Skarsgård wants to throw it out there that was round 2, but feels like it was round 2. And then round 2 kind of finished because Godzilla did kill him. And I think Kong conceded too, so Kong did bow to someone. Now, did you guys collectively, do you feel like that was the right answer to the who's going to win? And it actually did do the thing, they were saying one will fall, and I think everybody thought neither one's going to fall. But one did fall. I mean, King Kong really did die. If it wasn't for more people, he would be dead.
That's a good point, actually, because I was thinking up till this moment, I didn't really feel like anybody fell. And that this was just, they just used that as one of their log lines or something.
Decision.
Yeah, but he really did fall because he did die. Like, she could hear he was dying, and then he was revived. He wasn't fully dead. But he did lose, and he died. Concede.
Yeah, he conceded and he died. I mean, he had to get a defibrillator.
He was dying. His heart was slowing down. So he wasn't dead. She could still hear his heart, which I thought was another really cool moment. I love the way they incorporated
that was sweet.
The elements of being deaf and still being able to communicate, and how communication takes on so many different forms. I thought was really beautiful in this film.
Way too deep for this movie, but I loved it. I appreciated
Yeah.
it. But the whole time I'm like, this is so much better than the movie really deserves. I don't understand.
Someone's actually paying attention here. This is kind of bullshit.
But that leads to, Kong's dead, and then Lin comes back with a heave and has a great idea about, I'm going to jumpstart my heart, gets him going, and gets clear. Okay, brings him back from the dead, and but during that we get the fight between Mechagodzilla and Godzilla. Now this is where you get Godzilla fighting the murder bot that he's been sensing for the whole movie. I'm still a little fuzzy on how that works, but I'm just gonna let it go because who cares, right? He just knew somebody was making something that smelled a little like him in the water. I
Well,
guess I don't know.
There's some
John,
explanation to it.
Oh
okay,
please, please.
let me try and tell me if I'm wrong or right, because my
Go
thought
for it.
was he could sense the so Ghidorah, that brain telepathy thing that was happening, I think was what signaled to Godzilla that there was something going on, because he knew that that Ghidorah wasn't alive anymore. But he knew that there was something
Hmm.
happening because he could recognize that and sense it, and they were using it for their benefit. And I felt like that's what that connection was
Well, it's
for
a little bit
him.
of that, but in King of the Monsters, there's a lot of talk about how actually in Godzilla, there's a lot of talk about how the Titans identify each other, and and that's one of the reasons why they create the Orca, that device, and that essentially calls the monsters left and right and center and wakes them up. So when that scene in which Bernie is in the back of the tunnels and the floor rips open and there's a piece of equipment, that big red ball that's kind of like pulsing
Yeah.
in a way,
Yeah.
that was acting like the orca was acting in King of All Monsters. It was giving off a signal of an apex predator, and that's what was triggering Godzilla.
Ah,
Wow. I'm glad you're here because that
you're
makes
so
more sense
smart,
now.
John.
Yeah.
Thanks. I
I
try.
I wish you would have told me at the beginning of the show before I mentioned it 3 or 4 more times because that makes me look less stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like help a brother out is what I'm talking.
Well, see, but you have everything set up in an order, and I didn't want to get to it until we got to that order. And every time you brought it up, I was like, I'm just gonna hold it until we get there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Also, there's probably the majority, well, I don't want to say the majority, there's probably a lot of listeners who are on the same page as Aaron and I, where they're like, I'm not really sure if I know this. I can take a jab and maybe I do know some of this. And then we have John to be like, you're wrong.
Still think
You're
it's thin.
somewhat wrong. You're
I
right.
mean, if it's an actual Titan, I would understand it a little bit more. But this is Johnny Robotics. But whatever. So you got this fight between Godzilla and Mechagodzilla, and we've already talked about Mechagodzilla and how happy you were to see him. But how did you feel about the fight? Because Godzilla, your boy, who you put money on before the fight, I do remember, got his ass kicked.
Yep.
What'd you think about? Was that BS? Was that bullshit, or was that
No,
fair?
no, that's about right, man. Mechagodzilla, hands down, almost always beats Godzilla. In every single version of Mechagodzilla, it takes two monsters to take down Mechagodzilla. So the idea that this Mechagodzilla rolls out and he is completely just, you want to call it bitch slap, you want to call it
Oh, it was bitch
just
slapped.
raffle
Yeah.
stomping him, everything you could call it. Like it, he grabs his head and starts ramming it into buildings. Come on, that's
That
freaking
was
awesome.
cool.
Man,
Yeah.
he totally American History X'd him. He really
Yeah,
did. He just like curb stomped his ass. It
On the
was
top of
delightful.
buildings.
yeah, it was brutal, and it needed to be a brutal fight. The missiles being launched off, yeah, that's something that Mechagodzilla does do from time to time. I don't always think that the missiles would do anything, but you're already looking at a battle scarred Godzilla that has open wounds from being hit by an axe made out of a blade, just like whatever's on his back. So, it explains why he's a little bit weak at this point, or being weakened and getting his ass handed to him. But again, I totally bought the whole Mechagodzilla doing this, and I'm okay with it.
So how did we all think about the final fight? Because this is what happens.
It's the final countdown.
This is what happens. Well, that's funny because we're recording this on April 3rd, so that's 4, 3, 2, 1. It is the final countdown. What? Anyway, so there. I'm going to just ponder that for a minute. That was interesting. All right, so basically what happens is Kong gets jolted. He comes back to life, grabs that axe, and he goes after it. Now, because of the bourbon, Kong, after getting his ass almost handed to him, he gets a little momentary weakness in Mechagodzilla because Mechagodzilla at that point gets, I don't know, gets frazzled up top for a
Loses
second.
some power, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which while he loses those senses, that's when Kong takes advantage of it and uses the axe, which Godzilla charges. He's like, "Oh yeah, you need some juice." Whoosh, and bam, then he uses the axe to bring him down and basically kill him. Now I want to ask, is that a fair fight, or was that the right solution? Because then basically Godzilla gets a hand in it, Kong gets a hand in it, and the people get a hand in it, and the win.
I would have preferred to see no people involved, so that
Me
whole
too.
pouring the liquor down the computer, though an effective way of doing it, just seems too counterintuitive to their explanation as to why all of a sudden Mechagodzilla is acting on his own.
Completely destroys it, as I would say,
Yeah,
because he's on his own because of this energy source and the Ghidorah and everything else. But apparently, Windows 10 is going to affect it.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was a little thrown back by that idea because it does completely destroy that whole explanation. But I would have loved to seen more of Godzilla and Kong tag teaming in a way. When one gets knocked out, the other one jumps in, and vice
Yes.
versa, where they're going back and forth and doing big combos and stuff like that. That would have been much more interesting to see versus what we got. But it was still a fun
They join
fight.
hands and do a clothesline.
Yeah.
They both one person or one monster grabs one arm and the other grabs the other, and then they just like topple it on top of a giant building with one of those sharp pointy antenna things.
Yeah.
Impales him.
Or
Yeah, impales. Thank you.
Or King Kong holds on to Mechagodzilla's arms to give Godzilla a running chance to jump and do the leg drop that he does against Megalon. Some silly moves like that would have been fun.
They rip robot arms off
and start beating him with robot arms.
Yes, I agree. I would have liked
Baseball.
less human interaction.
Oh man, the fact that people were even there and they're all sitting around trying to figure out the password, and I'm like, what is happening? This is TV writing right here. This is TV writing. He's not. If this, and I was so on the edge of my seat. If this kid figures out this password to this mega corporation because he's sitting there in some random, he sees a random picture or something, I'm gonna lose it. But thankfully that didn't happen. I still wish
I did love that
not
line. The
done that.
whole like, how do you know you can hack? Well, I learned HTML in this class. HTML? Where are you from? The 90s?
Yeah, that was great.
It's so funny. All right, so what did you think of the win though? You guys cool with the win, other than the people shouldn't have been involved? But that was still a great fight, I think.
It was still
We
a
can
great
agree.
fight. I still liked the win, and I did love the moment where they go back and forth at each other and basically bang each other's chests back and forth. This Kong's like, all right, you win this fight, and Godzilla's like, I win every fight, and Kong's like, yeah, you're right.
And they got that nod of respect, like, I got it. You're kind of the king of the world. I got it.
Right.
I did think Godzilla was going to come at him again, or Kong was going to, because Kong started getting all angry again, or I took it as angry, like aggression, and I thought
'cause he
Godzilla was
won.
going to respond. Yeah, but he didn't, thankfully, and they just kind of went on their separate ways, which was great. But I do think that this could have been I don't want to say longer fight scene, but I think it could have been more involved, where we're focusing more on the characters. And I know we talked about humans being less involved, but just paying attention to them less. Aside from the moment where the little girl hears his heart
Yeah, that was great.
dying,
Yeah.
like that was a great moment. They could have left that, but maybe he finds a way to revive himself, or Godzilla jumps on his chest or something, and that happens to I don't know, like it does something to get him back up. It just I would have liked something that
Ow!
it was the monsters. Yeah.
Godzilla steps on his pinky toe, and then he's like, "Oh, it's on!"
Whips him in the face with the tail. Like he's sitting there facing
Yeah.
off with Mechagodzilla, and Godzilla just like turns
Get
around.
up.
See, hey, I need you a second. Get up. Whips him in the face with the tail.
Yeah, I was fine with the heart defibrillator part. I thought that was kind of funny and clever a little bit.
Yeah.
It was the kids and the bourbon, and that was just dumb.
Well,
That
I
was so
mean,
dumb.
we've already agreed that
Yeah.
storyline was kind of ridiculous and dumb and not needed.
But I
in
did
general.
like Godzilla. I mean, it was a nod of respect between the two of them. Like the alpha males, like, all right, we're good. But I think Godzilla had like a little look back when he's walking into the water, where he's just, and I don't know if it was kind of like a respect thing, or if it was, I'm just making sure you ain't doing nothing stupid, bitch. Like, all right, I'm good. I'm out of here then. That was great. All right, and then we end with Godzilla going back into the water, and with Kong in the hollow Earth / upside down, and he's just enjoying being home. So overall, what are your favorite moments? I mean, we talked about a bunch of them, but what are your, like, when you think back on this movie, like, what stands out?
The Die Hard jump off the battleship or the aircraft carrier.
Ditto.
It was
that
totally
look-
Die Hard. Hang on, I didn't even think of that. That's great.
He
Yeah.
said this earlier. Where were we?
I
Where
don't
were you when
remember
he said
hearing Die Hard. I don't remember
Yeah.
hearing that, but now I like it. I don't always listen.
That was a great moment at the end. You know, I wish Godzilla had some moments like that. Unfortunately, he didn't. But again, it's
No, he did have one great moment where I will say this is probably like what stood out to me the most when Kong is down and he's clawing him. That was a very visceral moment. Like I was actually very concerned. That was the only time I was ever concerned for any of the monsters. I was like, oh my God, that's gotta hurt.
yeah.
When Godzilla digs his claws into him. So I think, he had some, plus that fire breathing down and burning a hole through the planet, I thought was
And the
pretty
Jaws
intense.
thing, that was really cool.
Yeah, and the Jaws moment.
Yeah, the Jaws
Yeah.
moment was pretty cool. God, there's just so many moments. That's the whole fight with the fight with when they introduced us to Mechagodzilla the first time, when the three of them go into that battle arena and they're like, oh, what is going on here? And they're like, this is where things get sacrificed. And you're like, well, what's getting sacrificed in here? And then the skull crawler comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was pretty great.
I'm a big fan of all of the heartfelt moments. So the moments between Kong and Jaya, and just really every scene that they had when she first sees him and she's got her little Kong doll. I thought that was so cute.
No, that was really good.
And we already talked about the defibrillator moment, the moment where she teaches him sign language and everybody else is like, wait a second, he knows sign language, he can communicate with her.
Could have been useful.
Yeah, a long time ago. Hey, can you lead us here? Because so
Right. You know more than every scientist
Yeah.
here. You're way further than we are.
yeah, there were a lot of cool moments. The Hong Kong fight scene had some really cool ones where it was just big monsters fighting, and then it would zoom in on, it would be a close up of their kaiju face, like
Mhm.
angry and like and I thought that was really cool.
Oh, I love the lighting. I just thought,
The
like,
lighting
yeah.
was beautiful.
what beautiful lighting they had in this, and just some of the I don't know, the neon that was flying everywhere. I just thought, wow, this is a really well shot. Like Adam Wingard, congrats. We've kind of raved about him since The Guest, and you're next, but I'm glad he got some access to some real money and
Mm-hmm.
made a fun ass movie.
Yeah.
That scene in Antarctica where the little girl is telling him that home is down the hole,
Yeah,
and he kind of doesn't want to go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
that was sweet. That was sweet. Really, I hope if they make another one, I hope she's back. I don't care about anybody else in the cast.
Yeah.
But her, I would really like to see her back.
Well, there's a lot of people thinking that they're going to actually make a third movie out of it after this.
It'd be a fifth movie, wouldn't it?
Well, a third Godzilla movie.
Oh, we don't care about Kong anymore? Is that what we're saying?
No, we can move on.
I was gonna say, you're talking to the Godzilla lover of
hey,
all
Lord.
Kong
Godzilla
can get a-
lovers.
Kong's Adventures in the Upside Down can get their own movie without Godzilla in it.
Oh, that's another really cool moment when they're going through
when they're what? Oh, when they're going through to
in
the
tunnel
Hollow Earth?
thing.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Thank God they had those machines that they developed without ever having any kind of sample of that gravitation.
Right.
Science. That's whenever you have a plot hole, just say science.
Science.
And then works itself
Works for
out.
me, man.
All right, so now if $10 full price of admission, what do you give Godzilla versus Kong? John, you can go last because I know yours is probably going to be the most ridiculous score. Amanda?
$8.50.
Wow, I give it $7.50.
I give
John?
it $8.
I'm stunned.
What?
Did you just drop
Should
it
I
'cause
lower
said
my
that?
score?
No,
think so.
it's a fun movie. It's awesome. There is like we talked about like the little things back and forth about where there could have been some corrections, and there's if it's got corrections that could have been made, then they have to be addressed, and I'm addressing them with $8 as opposed to saying like it's a 9 or a 10 or anything like that.
But you will watch it all the time, I'm guessing.
I actually already have it queued up on my TV in the other room, so I can. 'Cause I hurt my back when I was working out this morning, so I gotta actually lay on a heating pad for a little bit. So yeah, I'm gonna watch it right now.
All right. Well, before we head out, before we're done, I want to kind of discuss because we all saw this in a movie theater, even though it is on HBO Max as well. Wherever you watch it, fine. We watched it all in a theater and we had different experiences. So I'm kind of just curious what your experience was and your thoughts walking out of the theater of that experience, Amanda, since movie theaters haven't really been a big talking point as of late.
Yeah, I was so happy that I saw this in theaters. I actually drove a little ways so that way I could see it in AMC's Dolby experience, which is not full IMAX, but the screen is massive and the room is just completely blacked out and you have
Yeah.
reclining seats and the sound is incredible and you have vibrating seats. I mean, it's the perfect way to see a movie like this. And I had middle center seats, and so it was perfect. And I've already seen at least part of it at home, and I do have a really nice TV and surround sound and all that stuff. And even though this is still a cool way to experience it, as we were rewatching it, I was like, man, I am so glad that I saw this in the theater because
Yep.
I just cannot imagine not seeing this there because I didn't get the full effect of the kaiju monsters at home that I got in the theater. Like, I want to go see this again in the movie theater.
Yeah, I saw it in a theater and I saw the same thing. I rewatched it last night just to get ready for this, just to make sure, all those fine story points I was clear on. Which I still missed apparently the pulsating thing that John was talking about. But but rewatch it just didn't compare for me personally. So it was I'm glad I saw this one. Like this is a theater movie if you can and you feel safe. This is a movie theater movie. Now, John, what about you? Because this is literally your most anticipated thing in forever.
Yeah, I went. Actually, my day started off by going to get my first shot, my first COVID shot. So I got my first COVID shot, waited around a couple minutes, then I took off directly to the theater. And it's the theater that I talked about that I love going to, the one that actually serves a meal just before the movie starts. And the food is always amazing when I go eat there. And I walked in, and my last couple of movie experiences, I felt kind of skeeved out because I didn't feel like the places were as clean as they were promising they would be. But when I walked into this place for the first time in over a year, I can actually see I can actually still smell the cleaner in the air when I walked into the theater. When
You can smell the bleach.
Bleach.
the bleach.
Full
When I
circle.
got to my seat, the thing that I thought was interesting was they apparently use steam on every one of these leather recliner seats. And they've used so much steam on them since they've been open again, and they told me they opened back up in October. That it's actually destroying the leather seats a bit, so you can actually see that. And though it didn't look pretty, it's still comfortable to sit on, and I still felt you can still smell how clean it is. So I felt that was a good touch. And again, I can't imagine seeing this. I can't imagine seeing this for the first time on a TV screen. This movie needed to be huge. It needed to be in front of you to a degree in which you have to actually turn your head to see everything. And I can't say it more. Go to the theater to see this one.
Yeah, I actually want to go back, see it in IMAX, just because I want to see realistic interpretations of these monsters. I want to see like, yeah, how big would you? Oh, that big? That's so big.
That's what she said.
Fair. And I kept waiting for one of them to go to the bathroom. I'm like, this is going to be so massive for somebody. But they never did. I'm like, I feel like that's another missed opportunity. What are you going to do?
Maybe they peed in the ocean. You don't know.
Well, Godzilla did. He doesn't care. He's a god. He probably pissed in Hong Kong while they were fighting.
Right.
Marina
King
Van Villa.
Kong
Thank God
scratching
Where
his
does
ass.
he pee from?
his penile area.
He's a giant lizard. It's all tucked up inside of him.
He's
But
an inner.
is it more by the tail or
It's
is
an
it like
innie.
front on the belly area?
This is way too involved. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of The Hollywood Outsider. Share your thoughts on this episode or anything else on our site, thehollywoodoutsider.com. You can go to our Facebook group, The Hollywood Outsider. We're on Twitter @BuyPopcorn, and our email is feedback@thehollywoodoutsider.com. Podcast is available in every podcast app you use, including Spotify and Pandora and Apple Podcasts, etc. So thanks for listening. And remember, the next time you go to a theater to see Godzilla versus Kong, buy popcorn.
Oh my god,
Wow.
we got so much popcorn. We
Yeah.
got so much popcorn. We got to the theater early, and we got ordered some popcorn to have with our drinks, and then we took that popcorn into the theater, and then they refilled it for us with even more popcorn and more butter. I was so full, it hurt.
That sounds like not a well night's sleep. A lot of butter and popcorn.
Good night, everybody.